So this is hopefully near the end of the initial push here. I've got the workflow mostly working. I have another version of it right over here. Look at, I don't know where it is. Off to a great start. Right. So I've done this. I've got login working. Basically, so on the server side, you can import your test plan. You can delete test plans. Then locally, now you can log in. Where's rogo login? Yeah, rogo login. You can list the challenges on the server. Once you're logged in, you can initialize the repository. And then now for the main two, you get status. This is actually working. The blue indicates that it's future. Something I want something on the to-do list. But we can create this initial rogo file, and yeah, so we're it's mostly working. We can run all the tests, but we can no longer fetch the tests. So you have to actually import the test cases locally if you want to run an actual test. I also added one called rogo check. Rogo check. And there's one called rogo who am I that I think is going to merge into rogo status. It just tells you what user, how you're logged in, and then rogo status would be a more detailed thing. It's just like not only are you logged in, but like where are you in. These two are the main like the workhorse of this. Like all of this was just like getting it all set up. Rogo import sets up the server, and then it's going to be serve command on cord. But we've got the main loop is you run rogo test, or very initially you can say rogo check just to check your command line. And then once you got that figured out, then you save it to you update the rogo file contents to tell the system how to run your code. And once you have that working, then rogo check passes, and then you can go on to rogo next, and then you're in a loop. You loop between rogo next and rogo test. So rogo next fetches a test, and then you go try and implement it, and then you see if it passes or not. Or I guess you can just run rogo next and then rogo test. But rogo next would try and the idea being that you should only add new features when you have a failing test, and then when all the tests are passing, that's when you can go change things and configure it. And so you need two separate commands. One is so you test it, and then once you've got the working, and once all their tests are passing, now you can say, well, okay, I'm going to go do some refactoring or cleanup or whatever. And then once you're done with that, then you commit all your changes and you do rogo next, and then you'll get the next challenge from the next part of the challenge from the server. I had to make one small change to the database, which was the idea that let me pull up an actual test, actual problem. So this is I imported the LearnTrist test, and this is what we're looking at right here. And so it looks like there are 45 tests for LearnTrist 0 through 44. Oops, what happened there? Important to know, but I guess scrolling off the screen somehow I what happened. Anyway, so I just selected the name and the head, and so I added this group column. And so far I'm not actually using it. Let me move this over to the other side of which is where I have my Emacs folder, where I have the actual tests. And you can see there's like a structure to it where I'm like giving notes to myself, like establish command loop, and then inside of that are the actual tests. But the idea is like, so this initial test is probably even going to go away, and it's just like the default test. Q command is going to go away. I might keep it. I don't know. As a way to explicitly exit the shell, but you can also just end your input. You don't necessarily have a Q command. But then like, so now you print the matrix. So again, these are tests for an implementation of a game like Tetris. So you need the playing field. It's called the matrix. Official term is a 10 by 22 grid. So first two lines are where the thing spawns, and then the rest of it, this part is the play area. Two lines up here for a new tetramino to spawn. And then, okay, so now you get the matrix. So given this input, now print it. Get the input. You get 21 or 22 lines of input. They're just dots, dots on these letters separated by spaces, and then print it. And this is like notes to myself. This doesn't get sense. And then you print it, and you get this. So it basically, this should be copied. Is what it's getting at. So that's kind of the workflow. Like, so you first you start out with just, okay, quit the program. Then you say, well, okay, now print the matrix. And each time you're issuing commands, and so you're building up commands that you're storing in your implementation. And then, okay, so then I was trying to get to these, right? So we do query this register, this score register, basic ideas, establish how to set and query the score, establish a line clearing mechanic. Rule.clear. So S is step. It's like what happens. So you got to step the clock, right? So we're establishing how time works. And then you introduce it to tetraminos, and they're all basically the same. So I don't know, maybe this is not a good example of it, because these really are like distinct things, and it's kind of obvious what they're going to be. So like we have to create the O and all this, and then the Z. Drawing and selecting the active tetramino. At any point in time when the game is running, there should be a single active tetramino that the player is able to control. Normally these are chosen somewhat randomly at runtime. Yeah, so what does T mean? The active tetramino should be the I. So I is that, and then T is just to print out the tetramino so we can see it. So T displays the active tetramino. So first we have to have a test that prints that selects it, and then we have to print it so we see it. So that we know that you have the representation of the tetramino and like the bounding box. So the C is a 1, 2, 3, 4 by 4 grid. 4 by 4, it's tetra. But the O is much smaller. You see, it's 4. It also has a color. It has 4 yellow blocks in standard Tetris. So it spawns in a 4 by 3 matrix. Oh, so this is actually incorrect, and that this text is never displayed to the person anyway, player anyway. And then the others fit in 3 by 3 matrix. So that's just kind of like something to know that because commands are all issued on a single line. This helps keep the test descriptions readable and also makes it more convenient to type the commands interactively by hand. You realize you can do that, right? Meaning that yes, you can actually. You may need to log in. The idea is hey, this is a shell for you to use. You can debug your own program this way. You're not just appeasing the test runner here. That's the idea. Anyway, I'm rambling. I guess I was hoping this would be an example of. I was thinking this might be an example of a case where I would want to group things, but maybe I don't. I think these are each individual tests, even though they do look like they have a similar name. Clock and then rotation, right? maybe the rotation might be a little different. Because if you get this test working, maybe that's good enough. But then again, they're not really just variations on a theme. Maybe S and Z together, like S and Z might together be that because they're both the same shape. And the rest, all of them that are in a 3x3 area, maybe these would be a group. D and the L and the J and the S and so the 4x4 one, the 2x2 one, yeah, and the because like the I moves differently, right? It's a bar, you know, this cyan bar of 4 things. You rotate it, you can see it, right? It goes this way, then it goes this way, and it has to go on that line. It doesn't go on the top line as it rotates. It rotates around like this, clockwise like this. But it always takes up those 4 pixels or squares or whatever. So I think that would be like its own test. This is its own test, but then these are all the same shape, and so I think once you get rest of them, once you get these two, this is like the general case, and maybe these would be grouped. And so maybe this could say all the rest of them, and then individual tests for each one of these. But once you know, if you can handle them generally, then you're good, and it would just test all of them, but only show you one of them or whatever. Right. So that might be a case where I would use this group mechanism, and then they would all be like group. What is this? Clockwise, right? So clockwise that I would be 14, or maybe clockwise and counterclockwise, because there is a counterclockwise. This C appears to have rotated counterclockwise. So like I added counterclockwise rotation along the way with the right wall, right? So I don't know. Maybe once you had clockwise rotation working, then counterclockwise would be a new step, and then there would just be 7 tests for that, or 10, or however many tests we needed to prove it. Anyway, that's enough of that. That's the idea. That's what the grouping is about. And so then there's another. There's a, oh shoot! I killed the server. There's actually a second one called ord. Right now they're all 0. But you have a group and then an order within the group. And right now the groups are all 1 item long, so they'll all have ord 0. I don't know how to represent that in org mode yet either. So there's got to be some notation in the test format. So my goal right now, yeah, I'm rambling. I really just wanted to introduce the concept of the grouping of that. I don't have any support for it in the syntax. It's like what I'm aiming for. But that will require a little bit of rethinking of the org format. All right, enough of that. Enough rambling. Let's get into some code. I really just want to push through and get the whoops, sorry. I want to get the next command working. So again, I'm rambling for 13 minutes before. So next, that's what we need. I kind of revamped this to-do list. Really, I need to get next working, and really rogo test should report to the server, but like right now it's all kind of like you're viewing this from the client side, and then once we get to rogo test, right now you're fetching the, well, we'll see. Right now, like rogo test works locally. It doesn't tell anything to the server. So this next little phase right here will be like server stuff, server interaction. Like right now, it doesn't matter that you send anything to the server. Front end UI, front end user interface. Right. So this is all about what the user sees on the screen. HTML user interface. And then this stuff is stuff that can wait till later. Stuff that can wait a bit. is all stuff I want to do for launch, but you know, like you don't really need a tool to configure the init or to reinitialize the like once the config file is there, you can probably just edit it by hand. That's the hope, right? I mean, like it generates this much for you, but you have to fill in what the actual program is. So that's the bit that you have to worry about. Although that's what rogo check does. Right, anyway, so and I do need to figure out where to put this database. It's not super urgent because this is just me, but before I give it to users, yeah, so that can actually wait a bit. So really, it's just rogo next. Rogo next and rogo test need to be they're the things that I need to work on most. But rogo test is okay. So anyway, I'm rambling. Generally, it would be one feature story, but that might include multiple tests. That's the whole point. Offer a to get commit get push. If you send the version record. Test. Let's see what actually matters. We need to fetch the next test group from the server. And so that's going to have some involved slightly complicated SQL query to figure out what that is. Sorry, my nose is itching. And then find the next test group from the server. Then replicate that to the replicate tests to the local machine. Display the tests. Display the new test. Or display the first of the new test. Display text for the first new test. And I think that the rule about a group is that you're only going to only show others if they fail, right? Only show edge cases if they fail. I'll only show others in group if they fail. If the test edge cases. All of that has to work. And I guess later this bit about to track version control discipline, information as test pass on rogo next. But this is less important. This can wait. The idea being that you would be able to, like, it's trying to encourage like good development practices, like committing after you've added a feature. Now you've got a working system, all the test pass, commit it. The idea. And you get that loop of building something small, make a commit, build something small, make a commit. And then do some more refactoring if you want. then it should also tell user to run rogo test when they after they. I guess you could once they think it works. And then right now, it's not just should report progress to the server, but I went for a long walk today and I was thinking about this. And like part of the idea was that you have to have like specific output. Right now, the output that we expect is hard coded as a string in a text file. And I think that is limiting. What needs to happen, and also, the test result is shown as a diff. And I think that is limiting. I think what needs to happen is you send your results and then the server decides how it's going to send something back. And the test result might be a diff, or it might be nope, or it might be whatever. I mean, the first thing that can happen is when you run rogo test is that the test, like your program fails to run, crashes, and you get an error, and so then nothing is sent to the server ever. In that case, but otherwise, it collects your output, sends the output to the server, and then asks the server whether or not that's good, or asks the server to grade the work, and the server could respond with a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or something else, a diff. Like the thumbs down might include a diff or whatever. Or it might give you a points rating, like maybe it say, this is a passing grade, but you could do better or something. And you can decide if you want, how much of the spec you want to implement. What I'm saying, like, I don't know, like maybe the text is all on one line, and it would be better if you did like a paragraph wrapping, but that's not like essential. Like, pretty printing is not essential. It's okay to print out the ugly text if you want. Something like that. And that way, you can't just completely cheat. If you're running a test that if you're running something that the output is not given to you, like you don't know what the output is supposed to be. Well, right, because like in a hacker rank kind of thing, or a leak code kind of thing, you might not know what the output is supposed to be. It's a puzzle that you have to solve. But in here you're given example input, and you would expect a certain example output for LearnTrist. But then again, like the example that keeps coming to my mind is like the shuffle command, which I did not implement in LearnTrist 10 years ago when I wrote this, which is permute the list of all the tetraminos so that you don't get, it's called the bag in official terminology, I believe. You put all the tetraminos in a bag and you feed them out one at a time, and then you get a new bag of tetraminos, and that way you don't get the same. You never wind up with like 6 T's in a row or 6 I's in a row. 6 of the same shape in a row, or 2 of the same shape. I guess you could have 2, but you'll never have 3. Right. So the point is that's a random output, and even here in this one, there's a special command where the test specifically tell you what the shape to draw. Whereas in real life, of course, you choose one randomly, or you would choose one out of that queue. And so point is that the output that you choose is going to be one of, I guess, what are there, 7 of them? I keep forgetting how many there are, but I think there's like, right? I believe there's 7, but just where it should, and name like shape dot, right? So yeah, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of those. I-O-Z-S-A-L-N-T. So 7 factorial is what? Okay. So, oh, okay. So the thought is, what I'm thinking is that you would get, you would be able to output whatever you want. But if it's random, I think you want a seed. I think you want to give it a seed or something. Otherwise, if it's completely random and you're running tests against it, the test might work, but we need to, every time it sees something that it doesn't recognize, it's going to ask the server, hey, is this okay? Because the server is doing the validation. But if there's, thousands of these things, right, we don't want everyone to play, who runs that test to have, assuming they run, they're probably not going to run the test 5,040 times. But if they did, well, and even then you would get collisions, but out of pure chance. But if they ran it thousands and thousands of times, they could wind up with 50 with 5,000 different records that saying this is valid output, and then everybody would have that. So I mean, we really want to track what the submitted output was when it failed, and like keep track of their unique submitted outputs, but not thousands of them. And so we would probably encourage people to use a seed, but I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I think seeing in an aggregate like what the outputs look like that caused the failure would allow me to see like what are the common mistakes, like what are the failure cases. That's some thinking I got to do on my end on like how to run the course and how to like improve things. But yeah. So that's all when it comes to the reporting progress to the server. But at the very least, we are going to talk to the server, and then it's going to update something on the screen. And so, yeah, once I get past this point, I'll have the option of running it locally and seeing all the text in the browser, in the console, in the console, in the terminal, or running it in the web browser, and that's when I'm going to start like thinking about user experience a little more than I am now. So anyway, yeah, I'm talking, don't I? All right. Well, I got to think through this, but this is good. These are the things I need to do right now. However many of these are. So 4 things. Fetch the next test group from the server. Okay, so that is actually the question to ask. So in the server, excuse me 1 minute. I'm going to open the door because yeah, I have a little floor heater here, and I usually keep that on. And instead, I turned on the bigger heater, which is unnecessary. The whole floor was full. Nose is just like itching. Okay. Off drop. Okay, so oh. Okay, so I have not logged into the server. I keep wiping it out. So rogo, who am I? Which again should be status. Logged in as Michael. So let's just delete this. Start over again. Rogo login. Oh, sorry, rogo login. You can see it hit the server and log me in. Somewhere along the way, it said popped up a web browser. And rogo init. So now if we say select star from tokens, we should see a token. Select star from attempts, we should not see an attempt. So we say rogo init. Already initialized, so I have to remove the rogo file. Rogo init. You know, obviously the server ought to remember this, so it wouldn't be wiped out every time, but rogo init. Now I want to run learn tris. Rogo check. And it successfully ran my program. I think oh yeah, so I made that a symlink to the echo program, so which is just does nothing. So if you just run echo, it prints out an empty line, which learn tris ignores. Anyway, so now if we select start from attempt, there should be one attempt, and that should have this code here. And this code is what should be in the rogo file. AR something, yeah, with a Z at the end, CZ. So we're good. I think the state is probably not something I need to track anymore. The state is tracked in your head with whether you're doing the rogo next or rogo test. And you just implicitly do it. So by splitting the commands, then you don't need to track the state. And that was something I was going to try and track as a variable, but it doesn't really make sense. The state would either be build, where you're building new features, or change, where you're changing existing features. And in which case, you want all the tests to pass when you're changing, and you want one failing test when you're building, up until the point where it passes, and then you want you know to stay consistently passing. Okay, or temporarily break it or whatever. So the next step, so we say rogo check, and since I'm running the echo program, it ran some kind of programming. I don't actually have a real program here. And we say rogo next, and that should say to do rogo next. So that's the point where we're at. And so now the question is, the query is, so we're going to get a code. SQLite doesn't have variables, right? We can't just SQLite define variable. I don't think you can. Yeah. Okay, so SQLite just does not have a concept of variable. That's fine. So the query is, it really doesn't matter here, but we're going to select something from attempts A, same as what we just did. And if we look at the code here, the diagram here, I want to, given an attempt, it's actually called a code now. I have this little, it's not a hash, it's code. I want to find all the progress records that share that. Okay, so attempts A, progress P, where A or P dot AID is equal to A dot ID. Right, that table is empty. So this is giving me the list of things that are passed. Right. Really, this should have a column called O lines, but that's when we get to sending the actual data to the server. Right now, the server is not going to validate. We're still going to do that on the client side until we fix. Okay, so, but the test ID is, okay, so we want, oh, I see, this is what we want. So forget that for a second. From attempts A, oh, I see. From the attempt, we need to get the CHID. Use the CHID to select all the tests that have. Oh, we have the CHID. The CHID, the challenge ID. We find all the tests that have that challenge ID. So tests P, progress P. Well, let's just drop progress P first. Where T, no, where attempt CHID is equal to T.CHID. Now we should see 45 records. 45 records. The tests of basically all the tests for LearnTrist. Whereas select count star from tests would actually have like 47. Yeah, because there are 2 tests for rogo, self-tests. Okay, so I can make my head smaller. So now we want to say like attempt A, we want to say select test.name, p.name. Those are the names. Order by p.group. It's actually group by t.group. Group. All right, so now once we have this, let's do. Let me move this over so you can see it. For A is shot group by T group, and then we want to limit 5 for now. You can see the whole table. Right, so we have a bunch of tests. So whatever attempt we're doing, and A ID equals 1. Right. This is a stand-in for the A.code equals 1. And A.code like that. All that has to be there. And what else do we want to do? We want to say we want to get now the number of, so T name, and then we also want the count of P P.ID. It's not just, okay, so if we have like both, right now we only have, the schema is only set up to collect like passing tests. But if we're gonna have like passing and failing tests and the output from each, then we want count PID. Right. Well, we would just put where it passes, right? Where it's passing. Actually, it doesn't matter because you can fetch as many tests as you want. If you have well, whatever, we'll say where it's, yeah, where right, progress yeah, so that's the count of as passed, count PID greater than 0 as passed. We may have to modify this to handle groups. We have to break this up a little bit, but group by T group. The company I worked for a long time has this really nice sequential thing. So it's like, SQL gives you a lot of expression, but it's nice to be able to like build up a pipeline of. It's actually a language called Prequel, PRQL, that I believe is a layer atop SQLite that works that way. You can, you have from invoices. Now that gives you the invoices table, and then filter it, and then drive, and then filter, do all these little steps one at a time. Kind of neat. It gives a flavor of what I worked on. although that translates to SQL, whereas we just ran the thing directly. Then having passed equals 0. Right? And then limit 1. And then now we would say select star from actually we want t.chid in here, right? As well. Yeah, as x, and then from that we want to left join as x, and then also we don't have to explicitly say the left join. We want to say the as test t, where x.chid equals t.chid and x.group equals t.group. Yes. Right. That whole query gives us everything, gives us the first query, right? Or gives us all the tests that are ready to be, that are in the group that hasn't been done, I think. Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely what it does. I think that's the right way to express it. All the tests that have not been passed or whatever. So def get next group for AID. This is for an attempt, yeah. AID string. The given attempt. No, get the next group of tests. Next group of tests for given attempt. But that is not the query I want to run. This is the query. Oh man. So we'll say rows equals query, and then get rid of all this. And we do want to pass in the AID. Although actually we're passing in a string, right? So code word. Right, so let's put this in here. Move this up so that All right, so we have select t.star from and indent it a little bit. See. This would read better like here. From test T attempts A, left join progress P on AID. Where a.chid is equal to c.chid, and and so a.code is actually the argument. Equals question mark as x. That's where that's T where and kind of complicated, but it should do the work. No, this is not right. This is what it generated. So rows equals this. I think we just return this directly. And it will give the tests that the server thinks are unpassed. And so if you want, yeah. And then you won't be able to put duplicate copies into the local machine. Right, so then we need the driver to say do next needs to do that needs to happen. This is no longer static. Now we need self. What is AID though? AID equals self client attempt. Attempt current code. Attempt code. But really, do we have a config at this point? I think that's in org test has load config, right? Load custom config is what it's called. No, config. Load. Somewhere here it was called load config. Control shift N. Load config is in rogo runner. Oh yeah, of course it's in runner. So load config. Space in the driver. CFG equals runner.load config. Aid equals CFG attempt. We don't even need to give it a name. Big attempt. Tests next. Tests equals. How about the next test? Get next. How about? Right, and then and to do what happens when you win? Do something when you win. Do something when you win. If not tests, return. Do something when you win. And you won. You have completed it. Challenge. And then we'll say print tests. And also add them to add to local database. Add to local database. Right, so now the client needs to have a get next. It doesn't exist, so add method get next to class rogo client. We go get next self attempt. To get next test. And then we say JWT is the same as duplicate information, but who JWT. But we'll clean this up later with like, let's see. I don't know how repetitive it's going to be. Okay. Now we have to serve this. That's going to be a long URL with like 36 characters, 32 characters in it. That's fine. I can move this around somewhere. I can always clean this stuff up. So we need the app. Serve this. Temp challenge. A code. async def. Next test. Get next test for attempt code. Doesn't have to be post really. It get, but right now that's the only way I have to send the token ID. So I'm expecting like JWT equals. I'll put this in as to do. Like right now, you can just. It doesn't really matter if you can see other people's progress because like you're on not private information. I don't know, maybe users would feel differently about that, but do make sure you're only looking at attempts you can legally access. Yeah. Otherwise, you could you're allowed to see. Otherwise, you could just try random codes and like see what's in here. Otherwise, you could spam server with invalid codes for entries until one worked. Obviously, that would lead to some noticing, but until the code worked. And then see the ultra secret next step, next test case. That's a joke. Okay. All that's put in here. Let's make sure this refresh thing. So zoom back out of this. Like it refreshed and there's no errors up here. We do have to make that test, but otherwise we just return this information and we won't have any information if the AID is empty, right? So it should return this, so it should run the test. So I'm expecting to see, if I say rogo next, I'm expecting to see this get printed out. And let's see what happens. Probably it'll break. So probably there was an error on this side. Run it twice. Here, we should at least print out. Next tests. Let's get rid of this. Then JSON dump s. Possible this is not. Yeah, this is not. Not syncing. It's not sending the change to the server, is it? Deployment. Compare with deployed version on the server. Contents are identical. Possible this is not running with reload. I don't know. Posting twice. You're getting a 405 error? A and then a code and then next. Does get here. Doesn't print this. A code next. Oh, it's only for get. The methods didn't work. Oh, because it's, yeah, I didn't put it in the decorator. I put it in the, somebody probably saw that and has been sitting here waiting for me to unscrew that up for a while now. Okay, so now we say run reload, and now this should work. Yeah, okay. So we got the list of tests, and then we have to turn those into commands, and that's easy enough to do in the client. But I think what we do is we just return JSON. Oh, does post always already return JSON? Post already returns JSON. That was returned. Okay. Then in the driver, db commit. How about tx equals db begin, tx commit. We say for t in tests, Hmm. And the ord, we need the ord in there. Group ord. This is tedious to write. Like you would, it's nice to have the Copilot write it for me. It makes me wonder if maybe I would write, accept worse code for. This will not be necessary. We don't need to wrap it in it. It actually comes with chid, right? So that doesn't. It's actually t.chid. Chid. This would be a little bit simpler if we converted it to an object. Ooh, 7 values for 8 columns. Chid, name. I missed one of these probably, right? I added one here. Right, and if I run it again, it should say complain. Yeah, because the unique. Try. Except SQLite 3 dot integrity error pass print. You already have the next test. Please. You already have the next tests. Please. Already have the next test. Get them pass another. Use rogo check. Rogo test to run them. This here. Already. All right. All right, so there we add them to local database, and then think so far what I'm doing right there is just adding the test descriptor. I have a really nice little object relational map. Missing it. I could use it. It's a little extra complexity for not much complicated. I do miss. But what am I doing? I need in the model. I need to model here. I need to add chid to the. Oh, we definitely need group int equals 0 and ordered int equals 0. I got like a bad response from the server there. I don't know what happened. Let's see it scroll up. Weird, I don't know what happened. Now I'm looking for my code to change. Okay, so we'll go to the driver. Well, let's print. Yes, we don't need this. This is now. Def do show self. So show the current test. No, I don't want that. I want code config. This should return result, self result. There's no return here yet. It's going to be AID tests. AID equals, how about config attempt, cfg attempt, and we'll say attempt tests equals self.result, self do show. Arg. Yeah, we don't need that. And we're going to say tests equals, and then we're going to fetch the test with the same query that we already had here. Get next database, get next test, db get next. db get next tests for config attempt. Self results equals that. If not tests, and arg if not test and arg is not equal to dash q, you have completed the challenge. No, no, no current test. No current tests are known. That's because because show will be a command now. Okay, so if we run this, if we just go here and we say rogo show, that's like, we need like a better name. So what we actually want to do is print the current test. Right, so what I want to say, okay, so first of all, like this is going to stop, right? If tests stop. This is like the first pass. If tests, how about we'll say local tests, known tests, known. If known tests, then we will print we'll say if tests, then we're going to print tests. Else, or elif, arg equals q, then we're going to pass, else, we're going to print out this stuff. This. And so I want to take this logic not here. So instead of print test, we're going to do that. So rogo show, we'll do this. Q quit. Q command, and we don't need this print here. The Q command instructs learners to quit. Learners should not produce any output unless explicitly instructed to do so. And then we're going to say do next. All right, so the reason I put this dash Q in here is so that I can call it again down here. Now that we've acquired the next tests, this should never happen. This should not actually happen, but just in case. Because of the because the show call worked. But just in case. Right, because they already have the known tests. Known tests return. Then we fetch the next test from the server. Fetch next test from the server. And then, yeah, so we do want to double check that. This is saying we haven't passed the test, right? So we know an unpassed test. But if we're still here, now we get it from the client, from the server. It's odd that we say client, but we're actually using the client to get it from the server. And then we just call do show again now that we have the new information. Self do underscore show. Where do we say you have accepted the challenge? So if not tests, it's empty. And we say you have won the challenge. Otherwise, we have tests, put them in the server, or we put them in the database, and now this should work. It. Put this here. All one test pass. Okay. That's good. That's exactly what should happen. Why? Because Q does nothing. All right, so then we say rogo next. I expect to get the right, because we have not told it that we have not told. It's not even fetching. It's not even fetching. If we go back here and look at 2 and watch up here, there is no traffic. It's looking at this locally. So on rogo show. Quit. Q command instructs learners to quit. Learners should not produce any output unless explicitly instructed to do so. Rogo test. All tests passed. And then so now that needs to this at the very least needs to okay, so they're running that query. So both the server and the client need to know that the test has passed. All right, but that's a job for rogo test. So let's GD let's go check in some code. gd app.py. All right, so let's start it with database. So gd database.py. Let's get rid of that. db get next tests. Really code. A code, not. Model add foreign key fields. driver.py. Implement rogo next. Go next and show. And rogo show. As a bonus. Okay, so we can add that to the next. Rogo show current test. I guess that's the, if you want for reference. Rogo show, rogo, next rogo. That's like the workflow, these three things. Next show and test. Show, oh. Because I have 2 copies of the database. Rogo next. Show me the same thing. But add this line up here. Rogo show removes that line. And that blank line. Rogo test runs all the tests, and then so now it should actually, then we need to record that this test passed. And that's why, so the security thing here is that, not really security, but like, you know, the it's easy to cheat because like, right, what do? We tell the server that we passed? No, I think what happens is the runner needs to be modified. Say if we don't know, like when we get the tests, the expected output like almost 1 o'clock in the morning here. I think I'm gonna like not do this tonight. Not that hard, but let's try and think it through and just at least do the to-do part. Right, so we fetch the next group from the server, yes. We replicate this text to the local machine, yes. We display text for the first new test, yes. Once I think it worked, we did all that. So this is all working. Rogo test is done. It works, and it worked for that first test, but we cannot get the second test unless we get so we have to report the progress. We have to do this. It cannot be deferred. Okay, so run all previously passed tests against in feature adding mode, run current test. This is no longer a thing. You just don't run rogo next until you're ready to. If you're in, we just run all tests. Run all tests. But then what if you say, well, I need to, okay, so if O-lines, if the expected O-lines are unknown, or we have mismatch, ask the server. So that means we need like ask, we need, this is a multi-part thing. We need like check answer, right? Check output. To post check output for a code, or not a code, an attempt, a code for the attempt. So we given an attempt, we have an output, and we have so give me the O lines, the output lines, and what test is it? It's this. We know what challenge it is. So we need to know the I say we need to pass in something to identify which test it is. I think it's the name. That's that name, and then actual output, and that should give back test result. And the result might be Boolean, or a diff, or a message. Might be pass, okay, or a diff, or error message. So that's passed, okay, a passed, or a diff, or a message, or some other yet to be determined thing. When you're ready, okay, so then, yeah, on regression return. I guess this is the same. I guess I already had it. That's the first part of that. This is redundant. On regression or current test, send the O line. Check the output. Record the results on the server. If passed, record good lines locally, and that way, the next time we run it, we know the good output. We may want to. The current tests have no need of this, but we may. But again, like for the shuffling example, we may need table. What if you want to shuffle it like an entire deck of cards and there's thousands of encourage using a random seed. Like even if the we don't want to just record everything that gets back. You know, maybe put some limit on this. Maybe put some limit on this. So nobody. So malicious user can't wipe out the database. Malicious user. How about an attacker? Can't wipe out. Can't throw the database. Or misbehaving client can't throw the database. Can't insert. Can't record thousands of failed attempts. No failed attempts. There's some security there. Anyway, we record the good lines locally, and then right. So we want to record this, and then we want to also add a Boolean field. Add pass fail flag to the progress table, and then only consider past, successful attempts. Progress for next tests for for db.next next test. And so that fixes the yes, in results if passed, and so yeah, we don't need to record the failed attempts on the client on the local machine. It doesn't matter. And if it failed, print the error. Print the message from server and stop. We don't continue testing after first failure. So whatever the first failure is, just as normal. We only ever fail one test at a time. You can fail 0 tests, or you can fail 1 test, and then we don't try the others. And actually, this is what I just said. I had myself. And then choose between factoring and optimization for next test. That is actually not a thing you have to do. We don't track that anymore. And so we just remove that. And in fact, I will update this to that. And I will update this to the SQL to not include that state thing, which is in the temp. So we don't have a state. Move it from the database. I should have made this one my thumbnail. Visual state goes away. Maybe I'll make a screenshot. Weird, you got to look up that way to see. And that tells me that maybe I'm getting a mirrored image. Oh yeah, it's mirrored. No, it's not. Right, it's not mirrored. That's why it's weird. Camera. All right. I should probably make it bigger though. Even bigger. Filling stuff. All right. I think I'm gonna stop here and go to bed because I do have a plan for the next session. I'm just a little tired, and I don't think it makes sense to just keep coding forever. And I'm gonna call it a night. Bezier curve. Weird sound coming from outside. All right. Sound like something creeping along the road. Yeah, I'm done. I'm gonna stop rambling here. Oh, I was gonna take a picture. And technically at any time to have it up. All right. Thanks for watching. And we will put this. Oh, you know, whatever. It's up on GitHub, and very soon. Once I get this next little bit working, that's enough to run through a test. So hopefully by Monday, stream will be like implementing Learn Tris in J or something like that. I hope. That's what I'm looking forward to. Maybe even Sunday or over the weekend. Depends how much time I have. All right. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon.